Hey everyone, 99% of you watching aren't subscribed. Let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and at 1,000 subscribers, we'll drop special stories just for you.
We had studied them for decades. From orbit, from intercepted transmissions, from long-range probes hidden in their asteroid belts, we watched humanity grow. Every war they fought among themselves, every technological breakthrough, every cultural shift, it was all cataloged, analyzed, quantified, and dismissed. Humans were inefficient. Their biology was fragile, soft tissue, limited regenerative capability, high dependency on oxygen, narrow temperature tolerances. Their lifespans were short, their decision-making inconsistent, their social structures unstable. They fought each other constantly. That alone should have doomed them. Yet somehow they endured. I remember the first time I presented my assessment to the Varelian Strategic Council. The chamber was silent, illuminated by soft blue light, reflecting off crystalline data arrays. My projections hovered mid-air, graphs, probabilities, predictive models. Species classification, non-critical. I concluded. Projected resistance to external invasion, negligible. Estimated collapse time under Croth assault, less than 3 planetary cycles. A senior analyst flicked a tendril toward my display. They are violent, she noted. Yes, I replied, and adaptable. Marginally. That word would come back to haunt me. The Croth Dominion moved faster than we anticipated. They always did. Their expansion was a pattern we knew well. Enter system, disable orbital defenses, deploy planetary suppression, harvest resources, move on, efficient, brutal, inevitable. When their fleets appeared at the edge of the solar system, our long-range sensors recorded the familiar signatures. Gravitational distortions, energy spikes, the silent arrival of something that had ended civilizations before. Humanity did not see it coming. Not fully. Their early warning systems detected anomalies, but by the time they understood the scale of the threat, it was already too late. Croth warships slipped past their outer defenses with surgical precision. I observed from a cloaked Varelian vessel station beyond their lunar orbit. We were not there to intervene, only to confirm. The first strike targeted their satellites. Thousands of them. Communication relays, navigation systems, defense platforms. Gone in minutes. The sky above Earth, once filled with silent human machines, became a cascade of falling debris. Then came the bombardment. Cities, vast, sprawling centers of human life, were reduced to ash in controlled bursts of orbital fire. Not indiscriminate destruction, but calculated eradication. Strategic targets. Infrastructure. Population density zones. I watched one city, designation, New York, vanish in under 3 minutes. My instruments recorded the event clinically. Population loss, 8.4 million estimated. Defensive response, ineffective. Survival probability, declining rapidly. I felt nothing. It was, after all, exactly as predicted. What happened next was not. Human military forces mobilized, but too late, too scattered. Their fleets engaged across an orbit and were systematically dismantled. Their technology was outdated, their tactics predictable. They should have surrendered. Most species did, faced with overwhelming force. Surrender was logical. It preserved life, allowed for integration, survival in some diminished form. Humans did not choose logic. They chose resistance. At first, it was disorganized, fragmented, individual nations responding independently. Their communications crippled, their command structures collapsing. But then something changed. The noise became signal. Scattered broadcasts began to align. Emergency frequencies carried not just panic, but coordination. Not centralized, but shared. Targets were identified. Weak points noted. Strategies exchanged, not through command, but through collective intent. I observed a transmission intercepted from a ground unit. We can't stop them, but we can slow them. Hit their walkers. Aim for the joints. Use whatever you've got. It spread, not through hierarchy, but through necessity. And humans responded. The first engagement I personally analyzed in detail occurred in what remained of a human industrial zone. Designation: Eastern Europe. Terrestrial coordinates adjusted for atmospheric distortion. A Croft Walker unit had been deployed, towering, armored, designed for planetary suppression. It moved with mechanical precision, each step shaking the ground, its weapons reducing anything in its path to molten slag. Against it stood humans, no organized military formation, no standardized equipment, a collection of individuals, some in uniform, some not, armed with whatever they could carry, projectile weapons, improvised explosives, tools not meant for war. I ran the simulation before the engagement concluded. Human survival probability, 0.3%. Croft unit loss probability, 0%. I expected a brief skirmish, a futile gesture. Instead, I witnessed something that broke my models. The humans advanced, not cautiously, not strategically, directly. One of them, a male, approximate age mid-cycle, covered in debris and blood, was laughing. My translation matrix struggled to interpret the tone. It wasn't hysteria. It was exhilaration. He was recording something as he ran. "For Earth," he said, breath uneven but voice steady. "If anyone finds this, tell them we didn't just roll over." Another human shouted something incomprehensible, likely encouragement. They spread out, flanking the walker, drawing its fire. They knew. They had to know. They could not win. And yet they attacked anyway. Explosions erupted along the walker's legs. Not enough to destroy it, but enough to destabilize. One human climbed onto its structure, placing charges manually while under direct fire. He did not survive. None of them did. But the walker fell. The detonation that followed was not elegant, not efficient, but it was enough. When the smoke cleared, both the Croft machine and the humans were gone. My system struggled to process the outcome. Result, mutual destruction. Deviation from prediction, total. I replayed the recording multiple times, searching for error. There was none. I submitted my findings. Subject species displays non-standard combat behavior. High incidence of terminal engagement despite negligible success probability. Tactical value unclear. The response from command was brief. Continue observation. Categorized as desperation response. Desperation. Yes, that would have been the logical explanation. But as I continued to watch, the pattern repeated. Not once, not twice, everywhere. Humans did not retreat when they should have. They did not surrender when it was optimal. They fought when there was no chance of victory. And sometimes they changed the outcome. It was during my 12th observation cycle that something shifted within me. A human transmission, fragmented but clear enough to translate, echoed across multiple frequencies. We're not winning, but they're not winning either. Keep fighting. That statement made no sense. By every measurable metric, humanity was losing. Their cities were gone, their fleets destroyed, their infrastructure collapsing. And yet, they defined victory differently. Not as survival, not as dominance, but as refusal. I recorded a final note for that cycle, one I hesitated to include. Humans may not require victory conditions to continue engagement. At the time, I did not fully understand the implication, but I would, soon enough, because the war was just beginning, and humanity had not yet shown us the worst or the best of what they could become. The decision to ally with humanity was not unanimous. Within the Varelian Strategic Council, the debate lasted for 2 full rotations. Data streams clashed with doctrine. Predictive models were recalculated, challenged, rejected, rebuilt. Humans are unstable, one counselor argued. They lack centralized command. Their behavior is erratic. Exactly, another countered. The Croft cannot predict them. That alone has value. I stood at the center of the chamber, my observations projected around me. Recordings of human resistance, statistical anomalies, engagements that should not have ended the way they did. They are not efficient, I admitted. They do not follow optimal strategies, but they achieve results outside expected parameters. And the cost? A senior strategist asked. I hesitated. Total, I said. Silence followed, because that was the problem. Humans were not just willing to pay the cost. They did not seem to recognize limits. The alliance was approved, not as equals, not as partners, as a calculated risk. We would support them, limited resource sharing, tactical coordination, intelligence exchange. Enough to slow the Croft, enough to learn. I was assigned as liaison observer. My destination, a human strike vessel designated Resolute Dawn. The first thing I noticed upon boarding was the noise. Human ships were alive, not in the literal sense, but in ways Varelian vessels were not. Our ships were quiet, efficient, controlled. Every system optimized, every movement deliberate. The Resolute Dawn vibrated. Metal groaned under stress. Systems hummed unevenly. Voices echoed through corridors. Laughter, arguments, overlapping conversations that never seemed to fully stop. It was chaos. Functional chaos. This thing safe? I asked as I stepped through the airlock. A human, later identified as Chief Engineer Malik, looked up from a half-open panel. Tools scattered around him. "Define safe," he said without looking concerned. "That is not reassuring." He grinned. "Relax. She only explodes when we really mess up." I was still processing that statement when another human approached. Garcia. He extended a hand. I had studied the gesture. A greeting. I hesitated only briefly before mimicking it. His grip was firm. Too firm. "Welcome aboard," he said. "You're the alien, right?" "I am Teshov." Yeah. He waved it off. "We'll get you sorted. Try not to touch anything important." I scanned the corridor. "Everything appears important." He laughed. "That's the fun part." Integration with human command structures proved impossible because they didn't function the way ours did. Orders existed, but they were flexible. Plans were made but expected to fail. Authority was present, but constantly questioned, adjusted, adapted in real time. I observed a tactical briefing shortly after arrival. A human officer stood before a projected battlefield. Croft positions, predicted movement patterns, engagement zones. "This is the plan," she said. "We hit them here, and here. Timing's tight, so don't screw it up." A hand went up. "What if they shift formation?" "Then we improvise." Another voice. "What comms go down? Then you do what makes sense." I waited for clarification. It never came. After the briefing, I approached Garcia. "You have no contingency protocols?" I asked. He shrugged. "We do. They're just flexible." "That is not a protocol." "Sure it is," he said. "It's called figured out." I logged the exchange as further evidence of structural instability. At the time, I still believed that was a weakness. My first combat experience with humans occurred sooner than expected. The Croft adapted quickly to our alliance. Their response was immediate. Boarding assaults. Direct. Violent. Designed to overwhelm. The alert sounded without warning. Red lights flooded corridors. A sharp tone pulsed through the ship, urgent, relentless. "Boarders!" someone shouted. Garcia grabbed a weapon and tossed me a helmet. "You ever been boarded before?" "No." He smiled. "Cool. Try not to die. We just cleaned the floors." Before I could respond, the hull shuddered. Impact. Multiple points. Croft pods had breached. What followed was not war as I understood it. It was close. Too close. Corridors became battlefields. Narrow spaces filled with smoke, heat, and kinetic force. There was no distance, no clean lines of engagement, only immediate, brutal confrontation. Croft soldiers were larger than humans, stronger, heavily armored, designed for direct combat. By all measurable factors, they should have dominated. They did not. Humans moved differently, not with the precision of trained formations, but with something more instinctive. They used the environment, walls, corners, debris. They closed distance rapidly, eliminating the advantage of superior weaponry. They fought in ways my simulations had never accounted for. One human slid across the floor to avoid incoming fire, firing upward at an angle that bypassed armor plating. Another used a damage panel as a shield, advancing under sustained attack. And their vocalizations. They shouted. They cursed. They laughed. Even under fire. Especially under fire. "Come on," one yelled, charging forward. "Is that all you got?" This was not discipline. This was something else. I observed a human designation, Private Ellison, sustain multiple critical injuries, armor breached, internal damage severe. My medical scan indicated imminent failure. He continued fighting. His movement slowed, but did not stop. He engaged a Croft soldier at close range, despite clear physical disadvantage. The struggle was brief, violent, decisive. He eliminated the target, then collapsed. I moved toward him, initiating medical protocol. Do not move, I instructed. He laughed, actually laughed. Bit late for that, he said, coughing. You are critically damaged. Yeah, he replied. Story of my life. His vitals were fading. Rapidly. Why did you not retreat? I asked. He looked at me, confused. Retreat where? There were multiple escape routes available. And leave them, he gestured weakly toward the corridor, where other humans still fought. That would have increased your survival probability. He shook his head. That's not how this works. I did not understand. He closed his eyes. Just don't let them take the ship, he murmured. Then his life signs ceased. The battle ended shortly after. Croft forces neutralized. Losses significant. Human casualties exceeded acceptable thresholds by every known standard. And yet, they were not defeated. They regrouped, repaired, rearmed, as if this was normal. Afterward, I found Garcia sitting against a bulkhead, cleaning his weapon. His arm was injured, badly, but he seemed unconcerned. You should seek medical attention, I said. In a minute, he replied. Doc's busy. I paused. Your casualty rate is unsustainable. He nodded. Yeah. You continue to engage regardless. Yeah. That is illogical. He looked up at me. Let me ask you something, Takesh, he said. If we stop fighting, what happens? The Croft will secure the vessel, then the system. And after that, I ran the projection. Total loss of human civilization within projected time frame. He nodded again. Right. So we don't stop. I processed the statement. It was simple, too simple. You are willing to accept total loss to delay an inevitable outcome? He smirked. Who said it's inevitable? That was the moment, the exact moment, when something shifted. Until then, I had viewed humans as a variable, unpredictable, inefficient, statistically insignificant. But sitting there, watching a wounded soldier speak with absolute certainty in the face of extinction, I realized something. Humans did not measure outcomes the way we did. They did not calculate only probabilities. They created possibilities, even when none should exist. I updated my report that cycle. Human combat behavior cannot be classified as purely reactive or desperate. Evidence suggests a fundamental divergence in survival logic. I hesitated before adding the final line, because it was no longer just observation. It was recognition. Humans do not break under pressure conditions that cause collapse in other species. They adapt psychologically, tactically, and behaviorally beyond expected thresholds. I transmitted the report. Then I looked out at the stars, at the ongoing war that should, by all logic, already be lost. And for the first time, I began to question our assumptions. Because if humans truly did not break, then the Croft had made a mistake far greater than any of us had calculated. And we had just allied ourselves with something the galaxy did not yet understand. War, as we understood it, had rules. Even the Croft followed them. Not moral rules, never that, but functional ones. Efficiency dictated behavior. Overwhelming force ensured compliance. Psychological collapse preceded physical defeat. Every species we had ever observed shared a common breaking point, a threshold. Push hard enough. Through fear, exhaustion, loss, and resistance dissolved. Command structures failed. Individuals sought survival over purpose. That was how wars ended. That was how civilizations fell. Humanity did not follow this rule. By the time the siege of Titan Station began, the war had already exceeded all projections. The Croft advance had slowed, not stopped, but slowed. That alone was unprecedented. Entire fleets had been diverted just to contain human resistance. Systems that should have fallen in hours remained contested for cycles. The Croth adapted. They always did. And this time, they chose a different approach. If humans would not break physically, they would be broken mentally. Titan Station was a strategic hub orbiting Saturn, a massive structure, heavily modified, repurposed for war. Shipyards, medical bays, command centers, all integrated into a sprawling, layered complex. It was also full of humans. Too many. Civilians, soldiers, engineers. Wounded, a perfect target. I was stationed aboard the Resolute Dawn, docked within one of Titan's inner rings. Repairs were underway. Supplies were low. Morale, by human standards, remained holding. That term had come to confuse me, because by any objective measure, they should have been collapsing. Instead, they joked. They argued about trivial things. Food, music, entertainment. One human complained that the station's artificial gravity felt off by a hair. Another responded, "We're being invaded and you're worried about gravity?" "Yeah." The first said, "Because I can fix gravity." The invasion? Not so much. They laughed. I recorded the exchange. I still did not understand it. The attack began without warning. No fleet engagement. No orbital bombardment. Just silence. Then something entered the station. Not physically. Chemically. Biologically. My sensors detected it before the humans did. A foreign compound dispersing through the station's atmosphere. Invisible. Odorless. Rapidly spreading. Unknown agent detected. I reported immediately. Recommend containment protocols. Too late. It was already everywhere. The first symptoms appeared within minutes. Disorientation. Loss of motor control. Neural instability. Humans began to stagger. Conversations broke mid-sentence. Tools slipped from hands. Systems were abandoned as operators collapsed where they stood. Medical teams responded instantly, but they were affected too. I ran an analysis of the compound. Neurotoxin, designed to disrupt sensory processing and induce hallucinations. Secondary effect, progressive paralysis. It was not meant to kill immediately. It was meant to break them. The station descended into chaos. Alarms sounded, but no one could respond coherently. Communications filled with fragmented messages, overlapping voices, incomplete thoughts. I can't. Something's wrong. Stay awake. Then the hallucinations began. I could not see them, but I could hear the humans reacting, shouting at things that weren't there, firing at empty corridors, begging, laughing, crying. Every psychological pressure point activated simultaneously. If any species had ever had a breaking point, this would have reached it. And for a moment, I thought the Croth had succeeded. Entire sections of Titan Station went silent. Life signs dropped. Movement ceased. I recorded it as expected outcome. Human resistance compromised. Collapse imminent. Then, a door opened. The first human I saw emerge from the affected sector was barely recognizable. His uniform was torn. Blood covered his face, not all of it his own. His movements were unsteady, his gait uneven, like his body no longer fully obeyed him. His eyes were not focused on reality. He raised his weapon, fired, and hit a target behind me, a Croft boarding unit. I turned. More were coming. The Croft had timed it perfectly. Release the toxin, wait for collapse, then send in ground forces to secure what remained. It should have worked. It didn't. The humans came out of the fog, not recovered, not healed, still affected, but moving, fighting. Lieutenant Harris was among them. I identified him through biometric scans, though visually he was almost unrecognizable. His pupils were dilated, his neural patterns erratic, his body operating far beyond safe biological limits. He was speaking to someone who was not there. Yeah, I see it, he muttered, aiming down a corridor. You're not real, but they are. He fired. 3 shots. 3 Croft fell. His accuracy was perfect. How is he compensating for sensory distortion? I demanded. A human medic nearby, leaning against a wall, struggling to remain conscious, let out a weak laugh. He's not, she said. That is not possible. Welcome to humans, she replied. The fighting spread through station, but it was different now, less controlled, more primal. Humans moved through the corridors like something unleashed. They did not rely on clear vision or stable footing or even coherent thought. They relied on something deeper, instinct, training, and something I could not quantify. I observed a group of humans holding a junction point. One was blind, his optic nerves completely compromised by the toxin. He still fought, relying on sound and memory. Another had lost motor control in one arm. He used the other, compensating without hesitation. A third was laughing uncontrollably. Yet his weapon remained steady, his shots deliberate. They were not functioning correctly. They were not supposed to be able to function at all. And yet, they held the line. The Croft faltered. For the first time since I had observed them, their advance slowed. Not due to strategy, not due to superior firepower, but due to uncertainty. They had expected broken enemies. They found something else, something worse. I intercepted a Croft transmission. Fragmented, urgent. Targets are compromised but still engaging. Behavior is erratic. They do not cease. Another followed. Recommend withdrawal and reassessment. These entities are... The transmission cut off. By the time the toxin began to dissipate, the battle was over. The Croft had retreated, not defeated, but driven back by humans who, by every known biological rule, should not have been able to stand. Medical teams moved through the station, stabilizing survivors. Casualties were high, damage extensive, but Titan Station remained operational. Alive. I found Lieutenant Harris in a medical bay. He was conscious, barely. His neural activity was stabilizing, hallucinations fading. You were aware of your condition? I asked. He blinked slowly. Yeah, he said. And you continued to engage in combat. Yeah. Why? He looked at me, confused by the question. Because they were still there, he said. That is not sufficient reasoning. He frowned. It is to me. I returned to my station and updated my report. But this time, the language felt inadequate. Human subjects demonstrate continued operational capability under extreme neurological impairment. That was accurate, but it was not enough. I paused, then added, they do not require stability to fight. They do not require clarity. They do not require optimal conditions. I hesitated, because what I was about to write changed everything. They require only a reason. That was the moment I understood, not just their strength, but their danger, because if a species does not need hope, does not need certainty, does not even need to be fully conscious of reality itself, then there is no clear way to stop them, no threshold to push them past, no breaking point to exploit. For the first time since the war began, I felt it, not curiosity, not confusion, but something far more primal, fear, because I was no longer observing a species fighting for survival. I was witnessing something else, something the Croft had never encountered, something the galaxy had never prepared for. I was watching what humans become, when breaking is no longer an option. By the time we reached the Helios Rift, the war had already rewritten everything we thought we knew. The Croft Dominion, unstoppable, inevitable, mathematically certain, had been slowed to a crawl, not defeated, not yet, but challenged. And that alone had changed the balance of the galaxy. The Helios Rift was not a place any sane strategist would choose for a final stand. A gravitational anomaly stretched across the system, distorting sensors, bending light, disrupting navigation. It was a region where fleets lost cohesion, where precise calculations became unreliable. For most species, it was a nightmare. For humans, it was an opportunity. They can't predict us here, Garcia had said during the briefing. They cannot predict you anywhere. I replied. He grinned. Yeah, but here, they can't even pretend. The Croft arrived in force. Not a fleet, an armada, thousands of warships, layered formations, coordinated movements, overwhelming firepower, enough to crush anything in their path. Even now, even after everything, the projections were clear. We could not win. The combined alliance fleet assembled at the edge of the rift. Varelian vessels held formation, precise, ordered, controlled. Other allied species formed defensive lines, structured, cautious, predictable. And the humans, they did not hold formation. They hovered at the edges, engines idling, systems primed, waiting, not for orders, for the moment. I stood on the command deck of the Resolute Dawn, watching the Croth advance. My systems fed me constant updates, enemy vectors, weapon charge levels, probability curves. Every calculation ended the same way. Defeat. Still running the numbers? Garcia asked, stepping beside me. Yes, and we will not survive this engagement. He nodded, unsurprised. Yeah, figured. You accept this outcome? He shrugged. Doesn't change what we do. That is not rational. Maybe not, he said, but it works. The command signal came, not from a single leader, but from across the human fleet, echoed and repeated until it became unified. All units, we hold a line. No elaborate strategy, no complex directives, just intent. The battle began. At first, it followed expected patterns. Cross ships advanced in tight formations, their weapons firing in synchronized volleys. Alliance fleets responded defensively, intercepting, deflecting, retreating under pressure. Losses mounted immediately. Ships vanished in bursts of light. Entire squadrons erased before they could reposition. The Croft pushed forward. Relentless, certain. Then the humans moved. They did not advance as a fleet. They broke apart. Ships scattered, diving into the rift distortions, vanishing from sensors, reappearing in impossible positions. Their movements defied predictive modeling, not random but unpatterned. Every simulation I ran failed within seconds. They're losing formation, a Virelian officer reported. No, I said, watching the data collapse. They are abandoning it. Human ships closed distance. Too fast. Too close. They entered engagement ranges where Croft weapons were most effective, where a single mistake meant destruction, and they made no attempt to avoid it. One human cruiser accelerated directly toward a Croft carrier. Collision course, I announced. Correct, Garcia said calmly. They will be destroyed. Yep. Then why? The impact cut me off. The human ship struck the carrier at full velocity. The explosion tore through Croft formation. Shields collapsing, hulls fracturing, systems cascading into failure. It created a gap. Small, temporary. Enough. Go, go, go. Human voices flooded the comms. Fighter squadrons surged through the opening. They did not slow down. They did not regroup. They pushed deeper. This was not strategy as we understood it. This was momentum. Another human vessel, heavily damaged, drifted near the edge of the rift. Its engines were failing. Its hull compromised. It should have retreated. Instead, it detonated. Not from enemy fire. From within. The resulting blast chain reacted through nearby Croft ships, amplifying through their tightly packed formation. Another gap. Another opening. They are sacrificing entire ships, a Virelian officer said, stunned. Not sacrificing. I replied, though I did not fully understand why I said it. Then what? I watched as more human ships accelerated forward, past the point of no return. Using them, the battle became incomprehensible. Croft formations began to fracture, not because they were weak, but because they could not adapt fast enough. Their strategies relied on prediction, on control, on understanding the enemy. Humans denied them all three. I tracked one fighter pilot, designation unknown. His craft was critically damaged, structural integrity failing, weapons nearly depleted. He should have disengaged. Instead, he pushed forward, deeper into enemy lines. Pilot, you are beyond safe operational limits. I transmitted. His response came through static. Yeah, he said, that's kind of the point. He accelerated, straight into a cluster of Croth interceptors. The explosion lit up the void, and took them all with it. I stopped running projections. There was no point, because this was no longer a battle governed by probability. It was something else. I found Garcia at his station. His hands moved across controls with practiced ease, even as the ship shook under constant impact. You are preparing for a terminal maneuver. I said, yep. You will not survive. He glanced at me. Nope. I paused. Then why? He smiled, not bravely, not fearlessly, just simply because it matters. There was again that word, reason. Hey, Tkesh, he said, adjusting his trajectory. You should get to an escape pod. I will remain. He shook his head. Not this time. Someone's got to tell the story, right? I did not respond, because for the first time, I understood what he meant. The Resolute Dawn accelerated, faster than its design allowed. Warning systems flared. Structural stress indicators spiked. Target locked, Garcia said. Ahead of us, the core of the Croft formation, their command vessels, the center. You are attempting to disrupt their coordination, I said. Something like that. Your probability of success. Don't, he interrupted. Just don't. The ship shook violently. Hull integrity dropped. Systems failed one by one. Still, we accelerated. At the last possible moment, I was forced into an escape pod. I did not remember initiating the sequence. Only Garcia's voice distant over comms. Tell them we held. The pod launched, spinning, drifting, and behind me, the Resolute Dawn struck. The explosion was indescribable. Not just light, not just force, but change. The Croft formation collapsed inward, their command structure obliterated in an instant. Ships lost coordination. Movements became erratic. For the first time, they looked like us, confused, uncertain, vulnerable. And the humans did not hesitate. They surged forward, through fire, through debris, through impossible odds. The battle ended hours later, though it felt like seconds or eternity. When the last Croft signal faded, silence followed. I drifted in my escape pod, systems barely functional, watching the aftermath. Where there had been an armada, there was nothing. Fragments, debris, echoes. The cost was beyond calculation. Human losses catastrophic. Entire fleets gone. Countless lives extinguished. And yet, they had won. Rescue vessels eventually found me. I was returned to Varelian space. To the Council. To my report. I stood once more in the chamber where I had first dismissed humanity. The same projections surrounded me. But this time, the data told a different story. Final assessment? A counselor asked. I looked at the figures. The losses. The impossible victory. Then I looked beyond them. At what I had seen. What I had learned. Humanity cannot be measured by conventional metrics, I said. They are not defined by efficiency or logic or survival probability. I paused, because now I knew exactly what they were. They are defined by their refusal to yield. The chamber was silent, and that, I continued, is not a trait to be underestimated. I hesitated, then spoke the truth. It is a trait to be feared. I ended my report with a final note. When you fight beside humans, you learn their strength. When you fight against them, I paused, remembering the fire, the laughter, the impossible defiance. You learn what terror truly is. I am Tkesh. I once believed humans were insignificant. Now I know better, because I was there, at the end, when the galaxy learned the truth. Humans do not break, and if they cannot be broken, they cannot be stopped.